Hello. If you'll remember the last time we had class, we talked about characterization in literature, and you were asked to read the book Wonder. This week we're going to be talking about character development, which is just a little part of characterization. There are actually two possible ways to define character development. The first one is the process of a writer using text to actually create a character. So this is when the author sits down and creates a character or develops a character. The second one is the development that a character undergoes while in the course of a work of literature. So this would be how the character develops over time in relation to the book, basically who the character becomes by the end of the book. And this can be the antagonist, the protagonist, it can be any of the characters that we talked about last week. And tonight we're mostly going to talk about the actual development of the character throughout the story. Just to clarify a little bit more about what character development is, I just wanted to give some examples. The first example is Ebenezer Scrooge in A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. A lot of us have seen this movie, maybe portrayed in cartoon or by the Muppets. There are a few different examples, but it's a pretty classic tale and most people know what it's about. But Ebenezer Scrooge undergoes a huge transformation from the beginning of the book until the end. At the beginning, here's a quote that he said, "If I could work my will," said Scrooge indignantly, "every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. He should." So he's very against happiness at Christmas time, sort of the bah humbug thought process that we all probably have seen at Christmas time. But as he goes through the story, of course, he meets with the ghost of Christmas past and present and future, and his perspective is changed. So at the end, he says, "I don't know what to do," cried Scrooge, laughing and crying in the same breath, and making a perfect coon of himself with his stockings. "I am as light as a feather, I am as happy as an angel, I am as merry as a schoolboy, I am as giddy as a drunken man. A Merry Christmas to everybody, a Happy New Year to all the world. Hello there, whoop, hello." Clearly, he is has a much different attitude about the Christmas season by the end of this book. So his character developed quite a bit. There's quite a bit of character development. The next example is Elizabeth Bennet in Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. So at the beginning of Pride and Prejudice, she's single, she's a little older than most people are when they get married, and so she's facing there's a possibility that she's going to have to be an old maid. And in those days, if you were an old maid, you were a burden on your family and you basically couldn't make any money of your own. So you were sort of at the will of whoever owned the property that you lived on, or mostly your father. So really it was kind of a dangerous proposition. But she wasn't interested in marrying just to get married, just so that she would be comfortable. She wanted to marry for love. Well, enter Mr. Darcy, who at the beginning is another example of a lot of character development during the story, but I just stuck with Elizabeth Bennet. Elizabeth's opinion of him is that he's very snobby and unkind and sort of cranky. So at the beginning, the quote is, well, this is more toward the middle, but this is her talking about the beginning. "From the very beginning, from the first moment, I may almost say, of my acquaintance with you, your manners, impressing me with the fullest belief of your ignorance, your conceit, and your selfish disdain of the feelings of others, were such as to form that groundwork and disapprobation on which succeeding events have built so immovable a dislike. And I had not known you a month before I felt that you were the last man in the world whom I could ever be prevailed upon to marry." So I apologize, that is difficult to read. And then she says at the end, she goes through some character development. She learns some things about him. She has some things that she has to deal with within her family and with some other things, and she realizes that he is not the man at all that she thought he was. And so at the end she says, this is to her father, I do like him, she replied with tears in her eyes. I love him. Indeed, he has no improper pride. He's perfectly amiable. You do not know what he really is. Then pray do not pain me by speaking of him in such terms. So she's telling her dad, don't say anything negative about him. He's amazing. So that is a huge turn from the beginning to the end. Okay, my final example is from Lily's Purple Plastic Purse. And you can see on the first page, she brings a plastic purse to school that she's very excited about, and it's a distraction, and so her teacher takes it away. And you can see from the drawing that she's really upset, and she says he is a big, fat, mean Mr. Stealing teacher, and she puts it in his bag. And then that night, she just is so upset about what she did that she just can't stop thinking about it, and she decided that she was going to write a different letter. And so she writes and just says, I'm so sorry, and then she draws another picture talking about how great he is. He could be principal, and I forgive everyone, and she's kind of hoping that he won't be angry at her. And then by the end of the book, she's dancing and singing and is excited and loves her teacher again. So, you know, there's this character development for Lily through this book. Okay, so I'm not going to get too much into each individual character because that is what your assignment is going to be. But I'm just quickly going to go through some of the different characters. You can if you can think of other characters, that works for me too for your assignment. As we're talking about August, he begins the school year very afraid, and he ends the school year with a different opinion. He's not afraid anymore. His opinion about some of the people at the school has been clarified, and he just is a different person than he was at the beginning of the year. Same goes for his sister. She had a few moments during the book where she was struggling, and she made some decisions that she maybe wouldn't have made before, maybe joined some clubs that she wouldn't have gotten involved with, and by the end of the book has changed her opinion, or not so much changed, but has solidified her opinion. So Summer, I'm not sure, and this is part of the assignment, I'm not sure how much Summer really changed. She maybe stayed kind of the same. So that's something that you could think about. Maybe you think that she did change. Jack is another example. He probably maybe didn't change very much. His reputation changed, and some of the information that was out in the open changed, but Jack himself, it's arguable. Did he actually change? Did he actually develop in a notable way? Justin, kind of the same thing. And Miranda, we know that she underwent a bit of a change. She did develop. It was a bit, they didn't go into as much detail with Miranda, but she was a good part of the story. So for your assignment this week, I want you to choose one character from Wonder. Now, it doesn't have to be the people that I just showed you. You could do the mom or the dad or Mr. Tushman or one of the teachers. There's a lot of people that you can choose from. And I want you to go, and in the book, I want you to find 4 different excerpts that summarize this character's development over the course of Wonder. So it could be either direct or indirect, and it just needs to contain some sort of evidence that they underwent character development or that they didn't. If they didn't undergo character development, that still fits in within character development. So if you feel like they didn't change, you can give me some evidence of that. And then be prepared to share that in a group that chose the same person. So you can kind of talk with each other and go through that together. Okay, good luck.